I am so excited for you guys to learn from Alexia.
Very welcome. My pleasure.
So can you tell me, what was your life like before you joined the Institute of Women International?
Busy, stressed, very anxious. I had anxiety for, I would say, my whole adult life, but when I look back, it was all through my childhood as well. And I felt suffocated by pressure, expectation, all of these things. And it was just, I felt like life was exhausting. But it's interesting, because before I just thought that was normal. I thought that's just what everyone had, because, that's life and you just have to push through. And I think that's, I know now that that's just, a response to the situation that I was in, which is just push it down, ignore it and push through and, put that mask on every day. No one needs to know that internal struggle that you're dealing with, and, just get on with life.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I think now too, it's funny how you can look back in retrospect of how you were before. But I think one of my biggest driving forces, when I thought that it was normal, but what I now know is my biggest driving force was more so what other people would think of me.
So would you say that was one of your biggest struggles?
Yeah, one of them, one of many.
What were some of the biggest struggles that you had prior to joining us?
A lot of fear of judgment, like I just said. Anxiety was another big one. And also I had a lot of unrealistic expectations on myself, like those perfectionist tendencies. And it was all at the detriment of my own health, my own well-being, my own happiness as well, because I just thought that it's funny, now I can look back at it and I can kind of laugh at it, but it's just this constant monologue of me going, this is what I have to do, this is what I should be doing. And just that was driving me, all this, previous conditioning that I had, which was making me miserable without me realizing that that's what was making me miserable, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So can you recall what you would consider to be one of your low points, or that rock bottom moment when you realized something had to change?
It was actually when I had my daughter. That was my big catalyst for doing something about it, because like I said to you, I thought that was normal and that's just how I went through life. And when I had my daughter, my anxiety peaked. And, they say, like, new mums, you should be resting when the baby rests. Well, I couldn't sleep because I was too busy. My anxiety of, like, just general everyday life anxiety morphed into me staring at my daughter at night thinking she was going to stop breathing and die, and like Google, and I was like playing Dr. Google, and then that was then, because we can't compartmentalize that, then rippled across to every area of my life. I had anxiety everywhere. And then it dawned on me, this isn't the life that I want for my daughter. So why am I doing this for myself? And I knew that I had to be the role model for her. I knew that I had to fix and heal myself and be the best version of myself so that I can role model what's actually possible in the life that I wanted my daughter to have. And, I can look back at it now and I can say, I wish I had that realization for myself earlier when I was younger, maybe like in my early 20s. And if I had the self-worth and confidence that I have now, then imagine what my life would have been like. But at the same time, we have our journeys for a reason. I needed to go through that to now be like, to have been at a point where I go, yeah, something needs to be done about this. And so that's essentially, that was my catalyst, is her.
Yeah. So what was it that you were wanting to achieve when that moment happened and you made the decision to join the Institute? What was it that you were wanting to achieve from that decision?
I wanted to, so at that point, what I knew at that point was, if I was to raise my daughter in an environment with a lot of anxiety, tension, that was going to mold and condition the woman that she was going to be. So what I wanted to achieve was not being that. Actually, I suppose what I wanted to achieve was feeling internally the act that I was putting on externally. That, because I was putting on that calm exterior, that I could handle all of this stuff. And look, I was doing it to my detriment because I was the fixer and I took everything on to my own detriment. But actually being the person that I was trying to portray, but also being a person that could set boundaries, they could say no, they could put themselves first, because ultimately that's what I wanted to teach her, what was possible. And, you know, again, like I said, now looking back on that, I realized that I should have wanted that for me in the first place. And I know that now, because that's what's happened. That's what my life is now. But that's what I wanted. I just wanted to feel like inner peace, or actually feel good about myself every day, and not, you know, lie awake at night with anxiety or you know, thinking, but not, and you know, being able to actually have a good night's sleep. Actually, that's one thing that I didn't want for myself, actually being able to go to bed at night, fall asleep, stay asleep, and then, you know, wake up again in the morning and feel refreshed. But just, you know, a life that felt easy.
Yeah.
And without all that pressure, expectation. So I had the freedom to do and be the person that I wanted to be, or felt that I could be, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you joined this particular program for yourself first and foremost, and the follow on from that would be that when you felt better, you would then be able to help others to do the same. Yeah.
Yes. No, now that I think about it, because I knew that I needed to fix myself, but I really did have this, and it was actually through going through the program with the Institute that I learned this process, is because it's like as well as going through this process, I also had, you know, all these, I think having a baby or is a huge shake-up. Any big life change is going to cause a bit of a shake-up to what your values are, and you start to realize what you want. And that's when I decided, you know, I want to do something to help women. Like I want to empower women in some way, shape, or form. And but then that's when you kind of learn, you know, you can't, and it's something that you guys teach, you know, you can't lift someone up when you're on the ground. So that's when I knew, like, I had no business helping people until I fixed myself first. So, and that's the beauty of going through this process as well, is having that opportunity to be able to do all that healing, to be in it. And it's continual. It's not something that just kind of stops as well, but healing everything that you need, so that you can be in a position to help other women too.
Yeah. So you said that looking back, anxiety, that whole fear of judgment, the people pleasing, the perfectionism thing, that was like lifelong patterns that had played out for you. What were some of the things that you had tried in the past to achieve that internal peace that you were looking for when you joined our program?
In the past, I had been on medication, anxiety medication, in my early 20s, and that just made me feel, and I'm not advocating any medical advice here when I say this. This is just my own personal experience, but that wasn't a good fit for me, because it made me, it just made me not feel like me. And I tried psychology, but what I found with that, it was just, I'd walk out and I'd feel worse. It was just talking about the same crap that I was talking about in my head. So I didn't actually feel, and you know, it's funny, I can look back at it now. I remember going to see one psychologist, and look, she was lovely. I'm not saying that she wasn't, but I remember thinking to myself when I went in there, I swear to God, if she tells me to breathe, if that is my strategy to breathe, I am done. I'm not doing that anymore. And look, I now know that there is, you know, breath work and exercises and stuff that you can do, but at that point, that's not what I needed. So that wasn't really a solution for me, because what I had going on ran far more deeper than that. But
yeah.
And that's I think that's really, it's really about it. Like, I'd always, the other thing that I did do a lot of, and I've always done, is yoga and meditation. But it's interesting now, because I always thought that I couldn't meditate because I couldn't switch my mind off. So I couldn't actually slow down and be in the moment to be able to meditate, which now obviously is something that I find a lot easier. And then, you know, just it was actually a Facebook ad that came up as I was scrolling one night for the Institute of Women and Creatrix, and then, you know, that's the end of that story and my new journey.
So knowing that you found the Institute on a Facebook ad, like so many women have in the past, What was your biggest reservation about actually seeing the ad and then taking that commitment to join the program?
Honestly, money. That was the only thing, because I actually, before Creatrix, I had a lot of money stories. Oh my God, did I have money stories? I was scared to spend anything. And so that was my biggest reservation, because I think, you know, one of the things, I didn't really have any other objections, because I was pretty confident that it would work, because why else would I have a guarantee? Like, I remember thinking to myself, well, there'd be no business if it didn't work, because they'd just be giving all the money back to everybody. So there was no reservations about whether or not it had worked. But I actually did find, as I was going through the program, that I did have an issue that came up about a little bit of skepticism, because it's, you know, it does, I think, until you've experienced it, and I've actually had conversations with this about my clients post Creatrix as well, it's unfathomable, the fact that there is a solution that is so simple and quick and fast and long lasting, because it's coming on 2 years now since my first Creatrix session, and those issues have never come back at all. I mean, new things have popped up, obviously, but you know, there was that level of skepticism there of, can this actually work? Like, can a process that's so simple? But you know, I know now, and seeing my clients go through the same things, helping other sister transformologists with the same, you know, with issues as well, knowing that there is actually a much simpler way to overcome a lot of the issues that are keeping, you know, everyday women stuck.
Yeah. So what would you say was one of your biggest fears? If money was the reservation that you had, what were the biggest fears that you had about actually making the decision to spend money?
Making an idiot of myself if it didn't work out, because obviously it's, you know, I didn't want to, like, and again, it comes back to that fear of judgment, right? It's if I do this, what if people think that I've made a stupid decision? Because it's not, we're so indoctrinated to believe that we have to follow certain paths, or certain qualifications have more weight and is the way that we should be going, because we believe that this is the way that we should be doing things. And so having all that conditioning, and also knowing, because I did care so much about what other people thought of me, because I knew that that's the way that they believed as well. And I actually did have a couple of people who were close to me turn around and say, what are you doing? This is stupid. And I know now that it came from a place of they were, you know, worried. They wanted what was best for me. But hearing those sorts of things, it really does make you, at that time, it really did make me question everything. Oh my God, if I made a mistake, I'm making an idiot of myself, and all those fears kind of came to a head. But that, I would say, what other people thought of me overtook anything else, any other fear that I had within myself, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So knowing that that was your biggest fear, and that was also a pattern that had played out for you for a number of years, can you tell me about the moment that you decided to push that fear to the side momentarily and join the Institute?
Oh, God, I felt sick. It was the lovely Kathy White, who had multiple conversations with me through this process, and she was amazing. And it's funny, it's that at that time, I knew but at that time also I didn't trust my intuition as much as I did now. I knew that this was the right decision for me, but at the same time, oh my God, did I feel, and it was that roller coaster of, okay, this is going to be great, I'm really looking forward to this, to, oh my God, what have I done? And to be honest, I'm so grateful for my husband, because he so up and down that he had to listen to. I sometimes think, how did he stay sane through this process? But again, it was a very short process, because, you know, I jumped in, decided to join, went through, had Creatrix, worked on a lot of my issues, and it was like, it didn't take long to overcome all of the, and I can look back at it now and actually laugh at the way that I was, because I just feel so disconnected from that person anymore, because I don't feel that way that I used to feel before. And it also makes me feel really grateful as well that I don't feel that way anymore, because if I did still feel that way, I wouldn't have a business today because fear would have gotten in the way.
And so with that in mind, what had the fear previously stopped you from doing?
Because I was so scared of making an idiot of myself all the time, living. I know that sounds really basic, but I did not put myself forward for opportunities and I think that's also fueled by self-doubt that I had as well. But I wouldn't put myself out there in social situations, that sort of thing. I wouldn't feel comfortable in my own skin. I'd feel really awkward. And so as a result, I just didn't put myself in situations like that. And I think it actually took, it was a few issues that I needed to work on around even when I did start my business too, because I never, ever, ever had a social media presence. Like if I imagine that, like me, pre-Creatrix, would never be having this conversation with you now, knowing that other people were going to see it. Like there is just no way that that would be happening, because I wouldn't be able to speak. I would be really nervous. And then part of that perfectionism playing out as well, I'd be picking on myself, like every time I said or mixed up my words or said something I shouldn't have, been that hypercritical self. So yeah, if I wouldn't be where I am now, I wouldn't be doing the things that I am now, I wouldn't be putting myself out there, extending my comfort zone. I would just still be and that was a source of frustration for me as well, because I didn't have the confidence to do the things that I wanted to do because I felt that I couldn't, and that crippling fear of what other people would think as well.
Yep. So knowing that you started this program and a business simultaneous, because you didn't have a business for empowering women at the time that you joined our program, in the early days of the program, did you ever feel like you wanted to quit?
Yeah, no, actually, no, it wasn't that I wanted to quit. What I was finding, and I did it was actually some of the, and this is what I love about the program too, the fact that we have a community of amazing, beautiful sister transmologists called me on my shit about this, because I was saying things like, oh, well, if I don't do X, whatever, reach this, then I'll just give up. I've given it a go, right? And that was always it was a pattern that was playing out very early on when I started my business. It was like my get out of jail free card. Oh, well, I tried, right? I gave it a go. It didn't work out for me, but we need to, and it's having someone call me out on that, having some creatrix around and getting the wisdom that I needed to be able to push past that. So yes, it's not that I wanted to quit, it's that I was giving myself an out.
Yep.
To go back into old patterns, to kind of go back into my comfort zone. And I think that's why we're always, and I think this is something that you need to be okay with before you start your business, being okay with growing. Because if you want to stay stagnant, if you want to stay where you are, then yeah, you probably would want to quit. But if you're open to it and you do want to grow and you do want to keep pushing past those glass ceilings, and if you are committed to that, then even when you do, and I think every business owner can relate to this. Entrepreneurship, having a business, it is a roller coaster. There are times where you're going to feel amazing because you've had a great month or a great week or whatever. And there are times where you're going to really go, oh, crap, what am I doing? Or it's not working. But then that's the beauty of Creatrix, right? When those things do happen, there is a tool there at your disposal that you can work through those and move past it and just keep going.
Yep. So can you tell us a little bit about your first big win that you had once you became certified? Tell us about the first big win, or that, oh my God, this actually works moment that you had.
I think my first client absolutely was my first big win, because I needed to see, actually, I could probably go back, even just having my first conversation as well with, like, my first conversation with a woman about Creatrix, and knowing that I had something that was probably a win. But the thing that I suppose I have the most memory of, and this is kind of going back to that little bit of skepticism as well. I knew that it worked on me because obviously I was feeling better. And I actually went through this phase of thinking, oh my God, have I joined a cult? Like, because all these women are just happy all the time. Does it actually work, or do I just want it? And I was thinking like the placebo effect and all these things. Am I just imagining this because I want it to be true? And because at that point, I'd only ever spoken to other transformologists, other women who were doing Creatrix as a business. And I'm thinking, maybe they're the same. You know, maybe this isn't actually the real deal. And then taking my client through Wodago and signing her off at the end. And even still now, seeing how well she's doing, that was the validation for me. That was like, this is the real deal, and this works. And that just cemented everything for me and gave me the confidence that I needed to just keep going.
How long into your journey was your first client? How long had you been certified?
I think 3 months.
Yeah, right. So pretty much you got certified, did the training, launched a business, and had your first paying client within 3 months of that journey starting. So what was that like, knowing that one of, the skepticism thing was clearly an issue for you, and you'd had heaps of people telling you beforehand, don't be so stupid, this is silly. What was that moment for you then like when you had finished off your first client, guaranteed her a result, signed her off so she was as happy as Larry to go forward in life? What was that moment like for you, if you go back and relive it a little bit?
It was actually quite humbling, if that makes sense, because it was really exciting at that time. And it's, just listening to the things that she was saying and the changes that she'd made in her life and the realizations that she'd had about herself and all these things was amazing. But at the same time, it was really humbling, because that's when I kind of realized it's not even about me. It's not about me at all. Like her. And now, like, it gives me goosebumps when I think about it, actually, because when now she can just go out and live her life, and it's that ripple effect, isn't it?
Mm.
And that's really humbling.
Yeah.
That I got, and it's really it's actually quite an honor, I think, that, and then even going back and reflecting on it, because through the process, obviously, you need to surrender to the process. You need to put your trust 100% in a transformologist that, is facilitating your breakthrough from the client's perspective. And then from my perspective as the transformologist, just incredibly humbled by the fact that another woman was willing to put her trust in me and surrender to the process to get her the outcome. I think that's just it's invaluable, isn't it? Like, it's just, it's really hard to put into words, as you can see, because I'm just going,
Oh, I get it. I used to refer to it as a paycheck of the heart, because it's not something that it has its value beyond measure, knowing that you've been able to help another woman to free herself from whatever it was that was going on in her life. Yeah. So what has been the biggest, most exciting result that you have achieved? Can you tell me about that moment?
No, it's something that I might not be the most exciting, but something that it's kind of, because I think, you grow as your business grows. It's something that I've realized as well. Yes, Creatrix is the bee's knees. It is the thing that I believe that if all women had Creatrix, oh my God, the world would be healed. But at the same time, it's not just about that. It's even having a conversation, even because a lot of the things that that women have Creatrix on, a lot of the issues that we have, we don't want to talk about a lot, or they are so close to our heart. And because I was the person who's so scared of judgment from others, it's actually creating an environment where you can just facilitate the conversation. Start the conversation of the struggles that everyday women are going through right now. Like, even that is just so impactful. And it's not about getting the next client at all. It's not about signing someone from that. It's just about kind of spreading the word and spreading the message, and that whole sense of sisterhood, I suppose, that, you know, you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to have all this unrealistic pressure and expectation on yourself. You don't have to get things right all the time. You are human, and it's okay to let people know that you do have this internal struggle. Even starting that conversation is just so empowering. And then everything else kind of ripples through from there.
We were talking earlier as well about the sales process, because a lot of women in business, or women thinking about starting a business, the whole sales process is often such a scary and daunting thing to even try and navigate. But what you're saying, and what we see, is the sales process itself is completely simplified when you are able to open your heart and encourage another woman to open her heart, leading her towards a solution.
Absolutely. And it's something that I tripped myself up a lot, because I thought I put way too much emphasis on how to structure, because, you know, you've got these fears. You don't want to come across as salesy, because that makes you, you know, people might think that you're just in it for the money or whatever. And, you know, you've got all these. So, and obviously, thankfully, I've had Creatrix at my disposal to work through a lot of these things. But I just remember in the early days, like, really getting tripped up on the sales at the end. And it's not even about that at all. And what I was in the early days, what I was finding is that I was actually making it about me, and how can I express my value so that and how can I give her the experience that she needs to be able to say yes, when it's not even about that. If you take away all of that pressure and expectation and just have a conversation with a woman, it's just about, if you like actually listen to her, if you validate what it is that she's experiencing, what she's going through, and chances are, and this is something from my experience as well, you tend to attract like for like. I attract a lot of women that were where I was. So it's not a matter of me just pretending, oh yeah. It's, I can feel for that woman, because I know exactly what that feels like, because I was in that position. Everything else just kind of comes naturally to that. And having that detachment as well, and being okay with it. Just because you have a conversation with a woman doesn't mean that she's going to be the right fit for you, and taking away that set of pressure and expectation as well, because you want women to step towards you, to know that, because part of the process is the fact that they need to surrender to the process and they need to put their trust in you. So if that's not something that they're able to do, then you're not going to be able to get them the outcome that they're looking for, which helps as well to have that complete detachment. And it becomes just a beautiful conversation to have with another woman and listen to another woman. And if it, you know, eventuates into a client, great. But if it doesn't, then that's also good, because obviously it wasn't the right fit, or maybe she needs to go down a different path, or maybe she's not ready, or for whatever reason it is. But you've still had that wonderful conversation.
And you've still added value to another person's life, regardless of whether or not they become a Creatrix client. The value that you've added through that conversation is incredible. So how is your life different now?
I give a hell of a lot less fucks. Oh, sorry.
That's good.
Don't forget things are being recorded and where they're going to be.
No, we're keeping it real. We keep it real here.
But no, I do. Like, I care a hell of a lot less. I don't have it's funny actually, because I find it's funny, because I've noticed that this is something that triggers me a little bit now, when people tell me that I should, like, you know, you should do this, or you need to do this. Don't you tell me what I should or what I need to be doing, because I know that for myself. And I think that just kind of illustrates the confidence that I actually have now. I'm just so much more confident in my own skin. I don't try and adapt. I don't try and make myself fit into a situation or what someone else may want me to be. I'm just me.
Yeah.
And take it or leave it. I don't give a shit. Like it's
And can I ask, so because and again, a lot of women come into business having this expectation that business is going to look a certain way. How does your current business, which is quite successful, you know, you were saying to me earlier, you're out there, you're being interviewed now by a number of different places, you're running really successful events, you're talking to a lot of women. How does your business look different to how you expected it to be prior to actually doing the program?
really good question. It's a really tricky question too. I didn't expect it to feel so aligned, if that makes sense, and so easy, because I think this comes through my experience in a corporate setting as well, because, you know, most of our workforces, like most of the workplaces, are very masculine driven, very KPI measured, numbers, that sort of thing. And as soon as I let that go, and I think part of letting that go was also releasing the pressure, that's when doors start to open, because I think we can actually get in our own way. And early on in the piece, that's where I was, because I thought I needed to do this and I was very focused on the doing of all the steps. Whereas as soon as I stripped that back and took that away and just let things go, that's when I start getting invitations to speak somewhere or start being open to just, and it's even just having conversations with, actually, this is something that I did used to do as well. So especially in social media, you get a lot of messages from women or whatever. And I used to, I was so focused on finding my next client. As soon as I stopped that pressure and expectation there, I was having interactions that, okay, they might, because what I was doing, I was repelling other opportunities. So now that I don't do that anymore, other opportunities open up. So, okay, it's not a client, but it's an opportunity to also have a guest speaking, or go and influence someone else, or go and educate another woman on the sorts of things that I'm doing. And even just, and so for that, I suppose it feels easy. And as soon as I started doing that, that's when I started getting women booking in on calls, easier sales conversations, actually getting clients, without it feeling so hard, I suppose. So I think, yeah, it's just as soon as, and that was a bit of my conditioning, I think, because like I said, being in that masculine dominated, that's what I knew. As soon as I stripped that back, it just, things just seem to come more naturally, I suppose.
Yep. And can you tell me a moment where something happened in life and you thought, oh my God, I cannot believe this is the life I'm living right now?
Oh my God, I've got heaps. Now I'm just trying to think about, because I find myself doing that often, where I go, oh wow, I can't believe I handled that differently. But I think sometimes what is even more profound is, because I can notice in myself, and I'm still trying to think of an actual scenario to give you, I can notice in myself something that I may have handled differently compared to what I maybe used to handle. But it's when other people notice as well. And they say, oh, wow, you just, and it was actually someone that said to me, and she actually ended up becoming a client of mine as well. As someone who said to me, she goes, I don't know what you've been doing, but I want some of that. And I think that, like, when you get that, and I don't mean it from a people-pleasing sense for external validation, but it's when other people notice too. It's when you can really measure how far you've really come.
Yeah.
Because like I said before, you know, before I was putting on this exterior and internally I was feeling different. Now my internal matches my external. And it's when that is noticed, that validates for me that that's how I'm really feeling. I know that sounded a bit waffly, but I hope that made
yeah, totally. Because I think so many women are spend so much time trying to be that external version of what they think everyone else wants them to be. And that sense of validation that you're searching for in that instance is very shallow as well.
Absolutely.
Whereas when you're getting the validation and you're feeling it from within, it's not that you're after the validation, it's just that whole, okay, I must be shining so bright right now for others to be genuinely seeing the real me in the fullest capacity that I'm showing up. That it comes from a very different place.
Absolutely. And it's just, and then I suppose that that kind of has that ripple effect too, because even having people say, oh, like, and they actually had one of my friends say that she was learning from me, from the way that I was managing situations and, you know, my resilience as well. And, you know, she told me once that I was her role model. And that's really humbling. Like, that's really, it makes me feel a bit weird as well, because it's a friend, but it's actually really, it's like, oh, wow. Like, I must be making some pretty big changes. And it's like you and I were talking about before, my husband has also noticed quite a few changes compared to old me versus new me now. But even things just don't worry me anymore. I was a real worrier. And actually, this is probably an example that I could give you, and everybody pinned it, right? So with my daughter, everyone just thought that I was like, I mean, when I say everyone, my family and really close friends who really knew me thought that I was going to be the anxious helicopter parent who's always, and now I'm not that at all. Like I just give my daughter space. I'm not worried anymore. I'm not sitting watching her breathe thinking that it's going to be her last breath anymore. I really don't have any worries in that regard for her. And it's funny because we've had a bit of a role reversal. My husband's more worried about so I look back and I just think, wow. And I can recognize that in myself too. I would have been, especially in the last 2 years, it's been COVID. Actually, that's probably something that I'm really grateful for, because of my anxiety levels, because of how much that I would stress. I don't know how I would have coped over the last 2 years, to be quite honest. And to now, don't get me wrong, we are human, and I'm not in any way, shape or form going to pretend that I don't have days where I've had a gutful of the situation, the restrictions, all the things that's been happening, but my resilience is a hell of a lot better than what it used to be. I might just have a bad day, I'll brush it off, and then be able to easily find something, you know, to be happy about or grateful for, and then just move through and just accept the fact that this is our life right now. Whereas before, I probably would not be able to accept that this is the way life is right now. And I don't really want to think about how I would actually be right now if it wasn't for Creatrix, to be honest.
Yep. So what advice would you have for someone who is in the same situation that you were in before the program?
Do it. Even if you feel sick, even if you feel like vomiting, it's worth it. If this is something that you want, if this is something you want to have a go at, if it was someone who already has an established business, it's a no-brainer, because this just is going to take your business to the next level, because you'll be able to push through all of those mindset issues. And this is just such an amazing tool to have. It is the best tool really to use for women. But if you don't have a business yet, it's absolutely doable. If that's what you want, sometimes we can make up, and it's our stories, right? And I went through this, we make it sound a lot harder for ourselves than it needs to be. And I think sometimes when we make things sound harder than they need to be, again, going through, like I was talking before about having that safety net, if in your mind you build it up to be something that's really difficult, if you don't achieve it, oh, but that was really hard and I gave it a really good go, and you're giving yourself that cop out. But it doesn't have to be hard. In fact, it's not really hard. And if it's something that you want, if it's something that you know, if empowering women is what you really want to do, and you know that in your core that that's what you want to do, then it's a no-brainer, really.
Is there anything else that you want to share?
I could say the one thing that I, other than the tool itself and the fact that I'm, you know, thank God Maz is around to created this, but it's actually the community and the friendships that I've made. And if they are listening to this, there is two particular beautiful transformologists that I'm referring to, especially, but that community, that sisterhood, that, you know, even, and we were talking about it before, going to the conference earlier this year and being in a room with a bunch of women that, and it was actually, that was really humbling. I remember crying. I was actually crying. I was happy tears. I was actually crying at that conference, and because I had never been in a room with a bunch of women that genuinely just wanted the best for each other. There was no ulterior motives. There was no jealousy, no, it was just love. I know that sounds really corny, but that's like, you know, it was just genuine care for each other. And it was actually really overwhelming. It was because you just don't experience that very much. So the community alone and the wonderful women that are in the community, all the other transformologists, is just amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and well, I know that what Maz has built and what the Institute stands for is women coming together to help other women. And it from an outsider's perspective, it can seem really hard to think that that is even real, because so many, there's a lot of other organisations that have the same kind of philosophy, but there's insecurities that run within the organisation that then impede the mission and the vision of that organisation. We don't have any of that because we've got Creatrix. So there's no insecurities. It's just total acceptance and total commitment to making the world a better place.
Absolutely. It's just nice. It's just nice being women. I think sometimes women get tarred with that brush of being bitchy, competitive. We're not like that. We're only like that when we have our insecurities, because, you know, we're making it about ourselves and we're projecting the way that we feel about ourselves onto others. But as soon as you strip that back, which obviously has happened in a room full of transformologists, because we've owned our shit and we've moved past it and we've had Creatrix on it, it's just, you know, women. It's just women lifting each other up in the biggest sense of the word.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today, darling. You've given so many golden nuggets, and I hope, and I know that it will inspire women who are just like you were to take that leap of faith and to follow the intuition, even if it makes you feel sick, because we've got you back on the
vomit. No, I'm kidding.
Just smuggle it down. We've got you back on the other side of it. Creatrix and the entire program, it's here to support you, because the more supported you feel, the more successful you will be. And the more successful you be, it means you're out there helping other women. And at the end of the day, that is the collective mission.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, darling.
Thank you.